firms dealing in and around the emerging technologies. Further, I have been joined by my colleague Arvind and Naveen, who will also assist me in keeping the event lively and resolving technical glitches if it comes in between. So thanks a lot to putting in such a hard work and making this one a huge success. We'll try to provide a seamless experience to all of you so that you can gain maximum output out of the same. Let me provide a brief background to all of you about AI CodeSpout. We started a couple of years back, backed up by InfoVision, who is our knowledge and innovation partner, and Digit7, who is our technology partner. Our mission is to serve as a hub for information regarding Industry 4.0 technologies. The focus is to provide all of you a deep dive in all the sectors wherever technology is there. And every month, our theme is different. We are gaining momentum month on month. Our aim is to be #1 AI-driven community all over the world so that like-minded people like you can be a part of the same in supporting, growing, and making it a success. The focus is to do industry-backed webinars and hybrid events. The knowledge base will be made from reliable data through industry leaders, subject matter experts, thought leaders, and our partners. We'll enrich the content through different channels like newsletters, podcasts, videos, blogs, digital content, and so on, to shed light on the ever-evolving industry. Today, we are having a lovely and unique webinar around the great theme which lays emphasis on breaking the myths about hyperautomation and the key to unlocking data and scaling innovation. So if you guys want to know the difference between automation and hyperautomation, emotions, feelings, myths, how to get the hyperautomation done, and much more, then you are in the right place. We'll go all over it throughout the panel discussion and give lots of insights to you. There are lots more in store for next month with focus on different technologies like AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, AR, VR, digital twins, metaverse, quantum computing, and so on. So request all of you to go through our website, which is aicorespot.io, for future updates. Also, please like our social media handles, which will keep you all updated on everything what we propose to offer in the coming month. Before starting with the day, I would like to highlight a few things so that it can set up the tone for the amazing learning and networking day. Special mention about our knowledge and innovation partner, InfoVision, who has supported us since beginning and provided us the right support to bring the community together. So some brief about InfoVision. It's an end-to-end IT and business services provider specializing in providing technology transformation and innovation projects for over 25 years across multiple industries. They serve 12 global locations, including US, Latin America, Middle East, and India. They also have a unique state-of-the-art research and innovation lab named Digit7 with 5 great innovative products in a couple of locations. One is at US in Richardson, Texas, and in India, it's at Coimbatore. So to get in touch with them, kindly log on to the website, which is infovision.com, and leave your details through the Contact Us section. Now, moving on, coming to our community partners for today, it includes Consumer Finance Limited, American Express, and Unity Small Finance Bank Limited, who came together to make this webinar a success. Special mention to attendees of the event who registered and came together to achieve their objectives through this forum. At the end of the day, if you gain few things out of this or get to network with each other, our core objective as a platform will be achieved. Further, if anybody wants to ask questions, they can type it in the Q&A section. You can type in as and when the panel member speaks, and we'll try to get it answered as per the time permitted. Now let me hand over the stage to Rajendra, who is the Chief Business Officer, Asia, Middle East, India at InfoVision, and who is the moderator for this panel discussion as well. He's joined by 4 great leaders, Deepak, Shrikant, Mamta, and Vaidyanathan. And I'm sure they will introduce themselves and do the honors. So over to you, Rajendra, to begin this exciting panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Nitin. A very good morning to everyone, a good day to everyone. It's absolutely pleasure to be hosting this and moderating this event. They say either you are the part of the automation or you get automated. And that's what's said by Tom Preston One. And we are taking the same theme. We definitely would like to actually take on the overall myths of hyperautomation and see what best is the way that we can deal with them. But a quick fire introduction from everyone. I would like to start with Deepak, who happens to be the founder and the Chief Strategy Officer for Evoluk IT. Deepak.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on this forum today, and good morning to everyone, or good day from wherever you're joining. My name is Deepak, one of the co-founders of Evolute IQ. Like Rajendra said, I run the strategy and operations for the company. We are a end-to-end hyperautomation enablement platform, working with clients across the globe. And prior to this, I have 22 years of experience in the consulting space. So bring a lot of that, when we're actually doing implementations for enterprise customers globally.
Thank you, Deepak. We are definitely going to look forward to hear some real technology insights from you. Moving on to Mamta, who happens to be heading a pretty large portfolio of AI, ML, and the upcoming technologies across the American Express faction. So, Mamta.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Rajendra. Okay, so for me, I am like Rajendra mentioned, I'm heading the enterprise-wide AI/ML platforms and products at American Express, which is where we have our own platform where anyone and everyone in the organization, if they want to do anything to do with machine learning, whether it is for them to learn, develop their models, govern their models, deploy, monitor, or do anything, with respect to the machine learning model, that gets done on my platform. We are, of course, both on-prem as well as hybrid. But prior to American Express, which I joined last year, I was working with Accenture and a few more organizations prior to that. In total, I bring in about 17 years of experience. I was heading the retail analytics practice for Accenture prior to coming to MX. In my personal life, I am married for last 17 years again with a son who goes to class 10th right now. His board exams are going on. And I love to spend my free time doing a yoga practice and playing Sudoku with my mom-in-law.
Thank you, Mamta. We are really going to look forward to get the actual practical aspects for both from consulting side as well as from the banking perspective. Moving on to Shrikant. Shrikant happens to be heading the VP Technology faction for Bajaj Auto Finance division. So, Shrikant.
Very good morning, everyone, and looking forward for this excited webinar. And all thanks to the sponsors and also to the presenters for making a very good topic, which is very useful in all aspects of technology transformations and initiatives. So myself, Shrikant, and I head technology as CTO for Bajaj Auto Consumer Finance. It's a captive NBFC, or you can call it a captive subsidiary for Bajaj Auto. So the main objective is to promote Bajaj Auto, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, pro biking, and different other products as well for both domestic and international market. So a lot of efforts are going into setting up new age of fintech process for Bajaj Auto. And it's been like I very newly joined here, been like 4 to 5 months, and a lot of work been happening on setting up this pretty large, massive unit for both domestic and international. And before this, I was with IndusInd Bank, where I was heading subsidiaries of IndusInd Bank, especially Bharat Finance. Bharat Finance, before it was called as Case Microfinance. So my entire experience has been 2 decades of experience in mainly in fintech, finance being my domain, and been part of many large transformations in the industry, especially in the finance space at NBFC. And before that, I spent most of my time in US. I was ex-Microsoft, IBM, and all that, doing a lot of product engineering and a lot of product innovations in that space. So this is all the background of mine, and looking forward to sharing my insights on this topic. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Shrikant. I think it's a very good combination, both in terms of fintech as well as the retail from the finance perspective of Bajaj. We are really looking forward to hear your thoughts and expertise. Moving on to very interesting participant, last but not the least, Vedanathan. He is the CIO at Unity Bank. Very recently, they have completed an extremely interesting project. And whether you want to talk about your background and experience.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for giving me an opportunity, especially to AI Core Spot. And my AI and all this journey, interestingly, starts now. And while I've been doing a lot of stuff as a consultant, overall, I've been in the industry for close to 35 plus years in the banking and finance industry. with a 360-degree view as a customer, as a user, as a consultant, as a vendor who sold hardware, software, and everything that is, I'm with Unity now, been with them for close to a year. Unity Small Finance Bank is 1+ years old and trying to compete with the best of the best. So the only way to do that is to do something different, something more unique, something more eye-catchy in the market, and to beat the best at their own game. So that's where technology comes into play, and technology is no more a back office function now. I mean, we get the best seat in the boardroom now, and everybody listens to us when you talk. So AI, definitely, we are, as far as Unity is concerned, we are still looking at that in the starting mode. But as far as AI is concerned, there are a lot of things that are, as a consultant, I've done. So would be happy to share some of them as we move along in this. But happy to be here, and would be a learning for me as well when I listen to the other speakers in the forum.
Thank you, Reddy. I think the very interesting aspect, the uniqueness and the different aspects that you're going to bring, I think they're going to boost the morale for the automation aspect. So we'll straight away get into the topic. But first of all, before going into this, one question, starting with Deepak. Deepak, can you tell us, is hyper-automation just a new word or a jargon? I mean, there has been automation. Few people have done it. Few people have a different view altogether. Or is it just a marketing mimic? I mean, what exactly is it? Maybe if you can share with us the automation and hyper automation, how exactly a technology person will look into it, and then we'll move to Mamta to find out how business person looks into it. So Deepak, starting with you.
Absolutely. So it's not, right? I mean, the short answer is it's not a buzzword. It's not a myth. Of course, the terminology changes as we progress, right? And some analysts call it hyper automation, some others call it intelligent automation. But the whole focus is actually moving away from the traditional way of looking at automation to really looking at a more integrated way, an end-to-end way, right? So it's really about that, right? And again, terms like you said can evolve. But if you look at traditional automation versus the new way of doing things or hyper automation, what we saw earlier was automation was focused really on solving parts of the problem, right, and not addressing the full end-to-end problem itself. So therefore, the approach that was followed was more disjointed. For example, if you look at RPA, which has seen a lot of traction over the last 3 or 4 years, it was really solving what is called as task automation, right? So looking at repetitive aspects of the business process and automating that, right? If you look at workflow earlier, it was really focused on integrating or providing the interaction between systems and humans. But for example, it was not able to handle large volumes of data that is becoming so important in our business processes today, right? Similarly, they couldn't handle AI/ML, to actually embed that intelligence in the overall customer and user journey, right? So that was essentially the old way of doing things. Of course, you also had things like integration tools, or iPaaS as it's called, right? And then for the front end, for example, to build any business application, or looking at things like bringing a human in the loop as it's called, but looking at exceptions, for example, you need to build a front end. Organizations today, for example, look at a very custom way of developing that, right? Now, what all this creates, right, in the traditional way of doing things, is you end up combining 5-6 different technologies together. That takes a lot of time to implement. It takes a lot of effort and, of course, cost. But also, more importantly, it's reducing the agility of the business to deal with the changes that are happening around it, right? And we all saw that what happened in the pandemic was that the need to have digital first solutions was hugely accelerated, right? And therefore, if you did not have that integrated approach which hyper automation enables, organizations were falling behind, right? So that's in a nutshell, right, the difference and the evolution. So hyper automation addresses all of these. It brings together capabilities of process, data, RPA, event processing, machine learning, connectivity with your systems of engagement and systems of record in a single integrated front end and in a low code environment in most cases, to enable the businesses to actually innovate fast and take out digital first solutions quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Deepak. I think it makes a huge sense to have the complete combination and co-location of all the aspects. So moving on to Mamta, you deal with, I mean, in American Express and all the other banks, you deal with so much of data. So is it, can we say for banks and for the finance aspects, the only automation is hyper automation? What's your take about it?
I mean, I would pretty much agree with what you're saying, Rajendra. The only automation nowadays, if I were to use the term hyper automation, it is that. But let me take you back, 20 to 25 years back, which is where, and if you think about American Express, I mean, we are the only organization which is not only a, credit card providers, but we are also, our own payment network owners. So the kind of data that comes to us becomes even more complicated, even more, huge in terms of the volumes that we deal with. And that's the reason way back, about 25 to 30 years back is when, American Express realized that how important it is for us to bring in efficiencies as much as possible. We obviously were not calling it hyper automation at that point of time. Things were getting done in bits and pieces, but the philosophy that we follow at American Express is anything which gets done more than twice should be automated. Plain simple, right? It should not get done manually anymore. If you feel that it is already done twice and there are more opportunities for it to be repeated, you should just get it automated. That's the philosophy that we always carry on with. Way back in 2010, we started exploring machine learning, and that's where I think most of the financial institutions, I'm not bragging, but most of the financial institutions were still trying to figure out how BI could be, utilized. But then American Express were already, experimenting with machine learning. Right now, we have our own AI/ML platform and products, which you can compare it with the likes of GCP. Within GCP, the analytical environment that they have, or AWS SageMaker, or Azure, analytic interface that they have, and things like that. So that's the crux of anything and everything that you need to do. We need to make it, bring it to the forefront of the business, and that's what brings in the amount of efficiencies we can unlock, right? I mean, if I were to say the difference between automation and hyper automation is, last 5 to 7 years, we've started looking at doing things end to end, and also specifically because there is a lot of audit and compliance happening from organizations like OCC, which really has a lot of keen eyes on banks to really say that things which are done in the well-governed way or not. Hence, hyper automation becomes very, very important.
Thank you, Mamta. Thank you so much. I think it's very clear both from technology perspective as well as from the business perspective. So moving straight away into the myths. So Vaidyanathan, from your perspective, both as a technology evangelist, as a bank, and the vast experience you have in business, what's the interesting myth or a completely unique myth that you have heard about hyper automation, Vaidyanathan?
If you were to answer that, people generally think, anything, if you want to do something new, they say it's not doable, or it's like landing man on Mars. That's the first sentence when you try to do something out of the ordinary. Personally, for the automation perspective or a hyper automation, it starts with me. I'm a tech geek. So anything that comes into the market new, a new iPhone, a new watch, a new pencil, a new tab, I connect them all. And since I fly a lot, then this question of what if the plane crashes? So, will the office work? Will my family run? So then I called it the blue book. Then how do I automate everything so that my family still lives and they know what is my password to everything? So I have literally automated everything onto my pad, and the password is the same across my laptops in my house and my pad. So that's one of the simple examples of my personal life where everything. The second thing, very, very funny thing, like hyper automation, my very dear, very say pet German Shepherd ran away a couple of weeks back, and we were running around to find him for 3 hours. We were helter skelter. Almost my daughter was in tears. Then I realized that fellow doesn't have a tag or a GPS, and then he realized there is a need. So that dog has to be hyper automated now. He has to be traced. Now the second thing is, now I love driving. So if you look at cars, so when you move from a normal car to a highly automated car, in my BMW, if I open the right side door, driver side door, the engine shuts off. It's a safety feature. Whereas you open any other door, the car still is running. And I got the feeling that there's something wrong with that car. So I switched it on and off. Then I said, please close the door, restart the engine. Again, it's a hyper automation. Look at our dependency on Google to do anything and everything for a map. Sometimes Google literally takes you for a ride and doesn't know the right route. There may be shortest route, but again, hyper automation. So if I were to talk from a banking perspective, this automation, if I started my journey sometime in '84 with a Japanese bank, and my core banking journey started there. And those were the eras when the nationalized bank and public sector banks were working something called a TBA, total branch automation. They called it total branch mechanization. And it was interpreted the way the advisors, the directors in various banks love to call it. So, and from that to where today, we are doing banking on WhatsApp, internet, mobile, and so in '97, when I first lectured about technology, I came with an article called TLRB, Total Leadership in Retail Banking, and AAA Banking, anytime, anywhere, anyhow banking. So in '97, when I presented, people said, "Oh God, I mean, you are a foreign banker, you don't understand public sector, you're trying to land a man on Mars." So they didn't say moon because there was already a man on there. They've got the footprint there. So, but today, if you see, that is done and dusted. Everybody has core banking implemented. So, and that myth is busted. So every time you try to do something new, there is a new myth, and people think it's not possible. If somebody takes the initial steps and it's so easy, we can do it. So there's a lot of see if you talk about banking, say AI, ML, RPA, and other digital tools to automate and streamline the business process in bank. We're looking at something where there are two things that happened in the Indian context. Was this goof up of this demonetization, and then the COVID. This created the payment system. The first demonetization created the payment system that automated end to end. So no change, no coins, nothing, and you pay through the payment systems that you have on your phone. And then it happened that you can do a schooling or a college without going to college when the COVID happened. So literally my kids finished off almost their graduation high school by sitting at home. So a mechanical engineer without seeing a lathe machine. So I mean, that's the kind of automation that has happened, but that's the outcome of that. So today, if we are to talk about my bank, we are a year old. We are a late entrant. We started sometime in November 2021, a year plus. And while we have some technology, I'm into a state of cleaning up. But being a late entrant, I have the advantage of moving and getting the latest. So that's my only way of beating the best at their own game. So I've achieved one, which I'll talk later during this discussion. So similarly, what is it that makes us different from us? Technology is a very good shortcut to success there. And you get it right, end to end, then it gives you a lot of visibility. So, I mean, there are myths, but those myths get broken as and when somebody else does it.
Hey, thank you, Vedana. I think this is one, it's difficult. Moving on from bank to the manufacturing and the automotive side, Shrikant, what do you think, which myth you think you have heard, and what's the interesting one from your perspective, Shrikant?
So, Rajendra, my definition for hyperautomation is, I'll put in this way, it starts all from problem discovery. That could be a process discovery or a problem discovery. And further, I can categorize the main difference between automation and hyperautomation is, the automation could be it's kind of, as I said, the problem discovery. And hyperautomation could be an intelligent problem discovery. There's a very thin line of difference between this automations and hyperautomation. So to take you the perspective of in our domain, in our sector, what's been happening. So as I said, we are a captive unit, a fintech of Bajaj. While there are a lot of automations programs happen in Bajaj manufacturing, that could be simulations, predictive analytics, and could be visual analytics, a lot of automations, chat integrations, manufacturing defect discoveries, a lot of automations usually happens in the manufacturing, and Bajaj also is trying to invest as much as they can to take this to the next level. But mainly my Bajaj Auto Consumer Finance is what we're trying to do is to put a automation process very intelligently, right from manufacturing of a product till to the financing the customer. So how do we do this entire integration, from the choice of the customer, right from examples could be a customer walks into a dealership and want to take a vehicle and want to go for a loan. So how do I get the complete inventory track right from the manufacturing till to the choice of the customer? That could be right from selection of product spec and also financing options for the customer. So this entire collaboration of this workflow is something that we are trying to build. So when we do this, my general advice or my general observation is when we do this, it's all about taking this particular problem, I'm saying the problem discovery, and then apply with a perfect analytics and insights. What exactly we're trying to do, and adding a layer of insights on that, converting that into a kind of a metric form will help the business and IT to take a decision whether are we really doing automation or not. And this automation need not be always to be associated with the technology. It could be the people, the process, or technology. Combining all this could be a delivery of automation or hyper automation. And the traditional benchmarking is something that usually when you have a manual process happening, you convert that into a traditional automation. The metric is 2x to 3x. So that is where you come to an automation journey. From automation to hyper automation, the benchmark should be like 5x. Only when your analytics speaks that, yes, you can further automate with some 5x returns. That could be in ROI or valuation process or efficiency, productivity, could be anything. Unless you have that metric, doesn't really make sense to put an effort to take this to the next level. So analytics has to speak what exactly we're trying to do, where exactly we are standing as of now. So these combinations of all this, a user or a customer or an IT transformer or could be a business head, all collectively need to sit together, have a metrics and take a decision. So I'll just give you one beautiful just a 1-minute business case, what exactly in my experience we transformed using hyper automation. So this case study is like 5-year-old, but still it is very, very relevant even now. So that will be very beneficial to all of us. So 5 years back, there was a typical a fintech company where I was been working, and we have a traditional loan process, where a person goes to branch, does the loan process journey on a typical paper, So that is a business case. So now what we did was, we automated that by giving the loan officer with a tablet, So this was like 5-6 years back, So it was an era of slowly the mobility, enterprise mobility all coming in. Yeah, so we also took that journey. So we introduced a tablet, and where the loan officer takes the tablet and goes to different branches and furtherly into the villages and all that, does the traditional banking on the tablet. So we automated that, by traditionally when it was happening like 25 days to get the data, slowly we brought that to 10 days or, a week data. So now what happened was, so when the tablet has been introduced, the automation happened, but now this is where the whole tricky thing happened. So that was the time Aadhars have started coming in, CIBILs started coming in, everything onto mobile platform. So the mobile journey, what we created, suddenly turned into an hyper automation where the particular tablet has been associated so many peripheral devices, the POS machines, the biometric machines, all got connected to the tablet. So now what happened? It brought the 25-day data to 1 week. Now it's instant. So this was an explosion of technology which helped the company to introduce more and more business products. So this is a very classic case study. Even till today, we have been the poster boy of this technology for NBFCs in microfinance industry. Even today, this technology being used. So this goes to the next scale now. What need to be done? So what I'm trying to say is metrics plays a very, very, very important role to make a decision what investments required, or what exactly we are trying to automate, needs versus wants. So this is a broad perspective of my definition of automation, hyperautomation. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Shrikant. So moving on to, so we have heard from Vaidyanathan about, how difficult it is, and Shrikant just summarized the matrix-based aspect, which definitely entails a very conscious decision. Mamta, from your perspective, what myth have you heard? Would you like to share with us?
So many of them, Rajendra. But I think one, the most important one would be, is it going to be very, very expensive? Another that I've heard is, if when I start on the automation journey, will I have the right skills in my organizations? Will I be able to really do it myself, or I'll have to buy? And hence it becomes even more expensive. But I feel that, Rajendra, it's all about, the mindset. First of all, when you're starting on your automation journey, why it becomes expensive is because we go in bits and pieces. We do something, and then after some time, we want to do something else, which may need to a lot of rework, which may need to a lot of throwaway work, etc. And that's where in my team as well, whenever we are going ahead to build a new product, I always discuss with my team that what is the POA vision that we have for us, right? Where is it that we want to arrive eventually? Let's look at that vision in total, define what your strategy is going to be for that POA vision, and then do it piecemeal, which is okay, because then you know what is your end objective. And you are then, just phasing it out, sequencing it out based on how much of budget you have, or based on how much of time you have, what kind of skills you have, etc. Not to say that, all the skills that you would require for hyper automation would be readily available in your organizations already. I don't think so. One of the most critical skills that is required, which you may or may not have, is data stewards, because even today, I don't see many organizations have one single unit which understands the organization's data end to end. And that's where, all of the organizations are sitting on tons and tons of data. We keep saying data is the new oil, but we don't know how to interpret that data into something which is really valuable. So, I feel that only one, or two skills that a company needs to, or an organization needs to invest into is one, the data stewards, and second, a little bit of, cloud skills, etc. But apart from that, I think 80 to 90% of the skills are already available in your organization in terms of your, citizen data scientists, citizen data engineers, your software engineers, and all of those people. So I guess, of course, there are a lot of myths. There are also myths around, with hyper automation, will I lose my job? With hyper automation, will I become redundant in the organization? But, of course, there are reasons, why you should keep on learning and enhancing your skills, why you should not stick to that manual way of doing things, etc. But yes, these are few that I've heard.
Thanks, Mumtaz. So I think so far we have recorded, the difficulty, that process, which and then we also talked about the overall way it's expensive to get all the aspects together. Then we talked about the people skills. The skills are not available, or it's going to be leading to job losses. These are some of the myths. So Deepak, from your perspective, which is the one which you have heard, and then we'll straight away get into solving these myths.
Yeah, so I think a couple, and I agree with everything that's been said so far. A couple that I think haven't been spoken about, that we see in our implementations, is one, there's a lot of emphasis on the productivity improvements and the cost reduction, and of course that is important, right? But more often than not, it becomes only about that, right? So I think one of the key myths is, how do we, it's not only about that, right? How do we look at the other aspects of hyper automation that are important, right? Whether it is things like enabling customer experience, and in today's sort of digital first world, that's important. So creating seamless customer user journey, so that's important. Also then looking at things like churn propensity analysis, and I think what Mamta mentioned around using data to power customer journeys, that's critical. Also the other myth, if you may, is around how does this coexist in the enterprise IT and the the fact that this could, for example, create a shadow IT. So I think those are a couple of aspects we should explore further, which often come up as myths as we do these implementations.
Thanks, Deepak. So I've collected all the top 5 myths. One is difficult, one is expensive, one will lead to job losses and turmoil, one needs special skills, and obviously creating a separate entity and the renewal of the technologies, it's difficult. Meanwhile, one participant has posted a very interesting question. It's by Archana Nair. Thanks, Archana, for really getting involved in this and asking the question. So she asks, what are some of the biggest challenges or pitfalls that organizations may encounter when implementing hyperautomation? How do you overcome these challenges? So maybe Deepak, you want to continue and just give us we know we are going to discuss some of these challenges, whether it is the prerequisites, whether it is the implementation aspects, but at a high level, I think quite a few of that is already discussed, but you want to just recap, Deepak, quickly before we go on to the next question?
So I think a couple of things come to mind, right? One, I think, is the critical challenge is really finding the right technology, right? And like you said, I'm taking a technology lens to this. I'm sure there are others as well. But finding a platform that is non-intrusive in nature and can work with the rest of the ecosystem, right? That, I think, is one of the key challenges that organizations must deal with upfront, and finding the right technology partner, right? That, like I said, can not only protect their existing investments in things like ERPs and CRMs, but also technologies around data, around process, etc., that they've already invested in, right? So I think that becomes a key part of it. The second key challenge is really around the change management, and that's often overlooked. I think Shrikant mentioned this, right? It's not just about the technology; it's people, process, and the technology sort of working together. And what we are seeing is, and it also ties back to the whole point we had around, is it expensive? What happens to the existing roles? Do people get redundant? I think dealing with that upfront and really figuring out a right mechanism for the overall personas in the organizations to work together and create that as an implementation roadmap. I think if you deal with both these aspects upfront, then I think you're off to a good journey.
Thanks, Deepak. There's one more question by Shreya Singh. I'm sorry I missed this question earlier, but she says, my question will be, how can organizations measure the ROI of their hyperautomation initiatives, and what metrics should they track? So at a very high level, maybe in a minute or so, Mamta, you want to take a stab at it? We know we have the critical success factors and the key performance indicators that we are going to talk about, but at a very high level, would you like to share your thoughts about ROI with Shreya and everyone?
For sure, for sure. So Shreya, I mean, if I were to talk about some of the key, things that I would measure if I were to go on the hyperautomation journey is, one, how much time am I now going to carve out for my team to do really innovative work? So that's one thing which I think gets unnoticed a lot, right? Because at times we are so involved in our day-to-day work in a manual way that we forget that the human brains are not meant to do repetitive things. We tend to get bored, right? And that's where, even for kids, if you would imagine, we create so many different games for our toddlers, etc., so that we can control their restlessness. And so is there for us as adults. We have our own innovative bent of mind, and we want to give them the right channel to channelize it. And that's where I guess hyperautomation really plays a big role. Second thing, I think, Deepak, you mentioned about customer delight and customer how smooth can we make the customer experience happen. So if we are using a lot of machine learning and a lot of AI kind of tools and techniques, you are able to really give them more relevant, give your customers more relevant offers, information, target them at the right time and things like that, which not only leads to customer delight, but also leads to a lot of, preventive attrition control and things like that as well. That is another KPI that I always, look for. And then the third and most important KPI is, how am I able to retain my talent? Because, the industry is moving very, very fast, right? And that's the that's when your talent keeps feeling that if you are being in your cocoon and you're not innovating enough, you're not going and exploring those latest and greatest technology, they feel that they are lagging behind. And that's when they start thinking about looking for some other opportunities and things like that. And that's where you lose all the knowledge, thought capital that you build over time among your people. So how much are you able to retain your talent by investing into latest and greatest technology, by making their life easy in terms of the mundane, redundant task, and providing them opportunities to do something really challenging, really innovative?
Thank you, Mamta. I think it really summarizes very well. We have one more very interesting question, and I think it should go to Vedyanathan. Manish asks, chatbots used in banks, success or failure, scare of losing the personal touch with customers has been highlighted in the US. And I think this also is one of the myths, that it's all about personal emotions, right? I mean, with the hyperautomation, the robotics, are we losing the human, or I don't want to say humane, but that personal touch? So, Vedyanathan, how do you think? How would you like to see to this, and would like to respond to Manish's question, Vedyanathan?
Just to answer this, and all of us are customers of the bank. All the people who are probably listening and who are also talking are a customer of the bank. I think none of us want to get into a phone where it is an automated answer and you have to press numbers after numbers after numbers. You just want to pick up to a person, explain your unique problem, get an answer, and thank you and say bye-bye. So probably where automation, I don't know whether we will reach a stage where a robo will automatically answer that instead of a human being. It's still far from there. But some of the mundane tasks can be answered. But yes, if you put everything into these kind of automation where you pick up the number and you take 10 minutes, and you say you are in queue, please wait, and some Western music or pop music playing in the background. I mean, you go say so frustrated that the line drops, then you are back to square one again, dialing the same number. I think, and somehow I come across somebody who has devised a tool wherein in a moment you dial in, then you dial just switch on that particular tool. It dial the sequence of the number 21940. It will take you direct to the operator. So this is another type of an automation to break this monotonous, telephone stupidity. I mean, that's what I feel. Even from a CIO's perspective, I might like to do it, but from a customer perspective, I don't want it. I would rather pick up the phone and directly go to the customer service agent, explain and sort it out. So there is always a pros and cons to it. So it's not a one size fits all. But here, there is a very interesting. I think maybe 10 years back, this was a study done in where you go to an ATM machine to withdraw money in London and all that. So some of these older generation people never liked it. They said for them, visiting a bank is a social activity because the machine don't talk to them, doesn't say hi to them, doesn't smile at them. And, you walk into a branch, the branch clerk will say, hello, Mrs. Johnson, how are you? How is your health now? What is your son doing? So, I mean, they find it, somebody cares for me. I mean, these people who live alone, they get bored. So that is not an end-to-end answer. I mean, while we are still looking at probably a digital banking unit completely unmanned, but that is not an answer or a panacea for all your problems. It's not a one size fits all. It's going to be a mix of both. And going forward, I think, for example, even the seniors, like you said, 97 when I talked, not many had done it. But today everybody has done. So what difference bank A, B, C, and D? So end of the day, the smile on the customer service officer's face. Say before she even asks, yeah, you want to withdraw money, you want to deposit money. That probably machine may not be able to preempt. So yes, automation, yes, but it has to be very effectively used.
Thank you, Vedyanathan. I think you got a very important aspect. We didn't realize that ATM was a classic example of automation. Instead of really giving a physical money by the teller, I think we didn't realize itself. We got automated about 3-4 decades ago, right? But yeah, I mean, moving on to thanks. It's a very interesting perspective.
ATM is now a dying breed. People are moving away from ATM because nobody wants to have cash. It is all UPI based payments. Maybe 5 years down the line, you may not see an ATM machine. You may not see even currencies. So I mean, evolution. I mean, that's part of evolution, I guess.
True. We have one more question by Subarish, and at a very high level, uh, he says, what advice would you give to organizations that are just starting to explore the possibilities of hyperautomation? I think, Shrikant, you covered this part, when you said you're going to collate together and you're going to create that matrix. So why don't you take a minute into, giving some advice to the new starters into the hyperautomation, Shrikant?
Sure. So my advice could be to make it very simple, which is understandable to many starters, from where they need to start this journeys. I would say pick your framework, Start with any framework. That could be a Six Sigma, or could be a traditional SDLCs, or could be any innovation models, or could be a TOGAF model, or could be any framework, which actually talks about identifying the business or IT problem. See, the whole lot of projects actually categorized into either it's the business problem or IT problem, So any decision what you're taking in terms of understanding what where you stand and how to move forward, select a traditional framework that will help you to understand, to give some kind of a metrics, how do you automate. Then the technology selection, the process selections, the people selections can start. So these days, you don't need to be a big wizard to understand these frameworks. Everything is available on internet, few formulas, few techniques you just need to understand, so that it can be easily be achieved. A simple example could be to, because the question is about for starters, let's take a traditional corporate website, So every organization has a corporate website. Now, what happens if corporate website gets hacked? So usually, we put some scripts. So even before automations, we have a corporate website, and how do you get it hacked? It's very difficult to know unless someone goes and visits your corporate website on a daily basis. In fact, we used to have monitoring team also, 10-15 years back, traditional, to go and check what's happening on the website. Then we moved to the automation model that, yes, the scripts have come, the technologies have come, the malware, deception technology has come, threat teaming, threat hunting. You put all that into your website. So anything happens, you will get a minimum alert saying that is something has some problem on your website. So to do this, find out, what are the technologies are available which can slowly minimize the automation to get the basic alerts. Once you're done with that, then let's talk about the corporate website hyperautomation. So when anything happens on the corporate website, then an alert has to go to the relevant authorities. Also, it has to go and update your dark web also, saying that there is some kind of hack happen on your corporate website. And it has to go to the dark web, raise the security incidents, talk to the governance, all through automations, I'm saying. Alert, event, trigger, this is something. So there are ways of automating, and the people friend, technology friend, and all that. But my advice is start with some basic framework, have some notes in place to identify the metrics. It could be a simple Excel sheet, or could be some advanced formula, whatever it is. But whiteboarding is something that someone has to start to understand where you stand. Yeah.
Hey, thanks,
I just wanted to add something very interesting from my consulting experience. The basic thing that somebody needs to have if you want to start an automation or any journey is to have a clarity of thought. What is it that you exactly want? I have had an experience of seeing RFPs and responding to RFPs running into 200, 300 pages. I cannot divulge the name, but I've seen an RFP which summarizes as, I don't know what I want, but I want it now. So my consulting answer to that, and I got shortlisted also along with the best of the best consultants, consulting names. So my answer to them was, I don't know what I'm giving it to you, but I'll give it to you now. So the problem is they don't know what they want. End of the day, if you don't know what is the consultant or an automation, is not going to solve the problem. It could be an automated problem. It could be a very simple manual. So whiteboarding and getting your thoughts right, organized, be very clear what you want. First is your requirement, not for the heck of it.
No, correct. I think it makes a huge sense to have a very clear thought process and getting what exactly you want. So we'll get into the next stage. So we have collected the myths. Taking the very first myth, and I'll go with Shrikant first. So Shrikant, you want to talk about the skills. I mean, particularly, two questions which really came up very clearly here. Does automation need extremely special skills? And in case if it needs, how do you create those skills, or how do you motivate people to acquire those skills? So can you get into this myth, and let's take the myth head on. So Shrikant, what do you think? How do we get the skills for automation?
I would say it's a general transition happens when you're trying to solve a problem. And so when you bring group of people, it could be an SMEs or business analyst or technology, the process people, and everyone into a whiteboarding to understand that, what we're trying to solve. And especially once we identify what we're trying to achieve, now it comes to the technology. So in technology, I would say we don't additionally need a skill set to automate or hyper-automate. It happens with the general transitions, where it's end of the day, it's the human brains has to put their minds as such, what exactly we're trying to do, what technology choices available. Yes, I do understand that low code, no code, artificial intelligence, machine learning, advanced computing, yes, brilliantly there. So you need to be smart enough to understand, according to your business problem, what technology of choice you want to apply. So once you take a particular technology of choice, then you need to further, do a deep analysis, any smart technology is available to take this to the next level. If not, then you need to automate at the process level. If not, you need to automate the people level. So end of the day, it's not all about technology trying to hyper automate everything. So it's a collation of everyone to come together and trying to simplify the process. So it could be, as I said, the problem could be the IT or could be business. If it is IT, most of your projects, fall into improving your TAT, SLAs, how to improvise a KRS. It would be cloud or could be non-cloud or could be any product innovations. All that could be IT projects. When it's business projects, it's all about end of the day meeting the business requirement. It could be inventing new products or new inventions, or helping them to simplify the workflows, or help them for business numbers and all that. So what I'm trying to say is, there is no skill set separately available in the market to learn the courses, understand how to hyper automate. That could be a wrong approach, I would say. So anyone has basic knowledge of having a decent experience, who is in the IT industry doing some kind of project work, can really hyper automate, selecting the choice of technology what is available. And then so that is, I would say, so let's not misguide it that someone has to go to a course, hyper automate, and do an advanced courses. No, basic stuff you do the courses to understand, but there's nothing you invest your money to advance yourself for learning automations, hyper automations. Yeah.
Thank you, Shrikant. I think it really clarifies that it's not about skill set in the first place. It's really about the mindset and the way you look at the hyper automation. Now, moving on to the next myth, and we would like to get details about it and the thoughts. So, job losses, Mamta, it's one of the scariest myths about the hyper automation. How would you like to look at it, and your thoughts about it, the overall threat of job losses?
And I totally, would resonate with what Shrikant was saying, right? It's not about skills, and hence you should not feel that you will become redundant. Anyone, who is working in the technology side, or maybe in operations as well. For example, in various banks right now, also the application forms get read by people who are totally in a manual way. The form gets the information in the forms get fed in the systems in a manual way, etc. But then there are automated systems like OCR, which can just read your PDF, extract the information from there and feed it in your systems. Does that mean that the people who were doing operational work, will they get totally wiped out? No, they will now have to learn how to consume this information which gets created from the OCR systems. See, you cannot ever automate 100%. There will always be this need of human eye to anything. That's where when we are doing document AI at American Express, we also promise that we will be able to help you. We are promising the operations team that we will be able to help you with 80 to 90% of the automation, but 10% of that keen eye to detail will still remain with your folks, right? That's how I feel that you can scale, right? If 10 people were doing some work, now it's only 2 people who would need to do that fine tuning. That the remaining 8 people can be used to expand, your markets, can be used to expand some other pieces of business that you want to, bring on, can be actually retrained to do something else, right? And that's how they will have a bigger kitty of skills in their own profiles that they can, talk about, they can feel proud about, etc. Apart from that, I guess it is very, very important for the leaders to really, when they are starting on this automation journey, to really bring their team onto the entire mission of going into automation. I remember one of the example from my previous organization. I had this big project which was running for last 5-7 years, and all of a sudden the client wanted us to go to a newer technology in the cloud. I mean, we were already using cloud, but they wanted us to use some of the new tech stack within the cloud. So we had this whole thought about, if we do that, will the project stay with the Accenture or not? Will they take the project internally in their organization, etc. But first and foremost, we sat with the entire team. I had a team of some 40-50 people who were working on this project. We all sat together, we discussed what are the things that we need to focus on, what are the skills that we need to bring on to the team, whether we bring them from outside, or it is easy to really redevelop the skills among the existing team members. And what we felt was, it was much easier once the team is onboarded and they buy into the idea that they need to acquire these skills. It was much more cost effective as well as business sustainable to upskill my own team than to bring someone from outside, because making someone learn the culture, making someone learn the business nuances is much more difficult than making someone learn the technology. So I feel it's all about, the right attitude that people need to bring to the table to be able to learn the new technology, and the right mindset of the leaders. That just, would do away with any kind of fear that we may have in terms of job losses.
Thank you, Mamta. It makes a huge sense.
Sorry for interrupting. Just on the learning part, just wanted a small note. The challenge, as I have seen in my all these 30 years of experience, is not learning. It is actually the unlearning the past and learning the new things. You can't sit in the past yet ride on to the future without getting off the saddle. But people never do it. They don't forget. For example, if you used to driving on the right-hand side in India, you land up in US, your left hand will be automatically searching for the gear. But the gear is on the right side. The problem is not learning. The problem, you have to forget that the gear is not on the left side, it's on the right side. Exactly. So unlearning is a critical aspect of learning.
And one more thing which I just remembered, Vedi, since you started talking, in the beginning you spoke about UPI coming in and then cash becoming redundant and all of that. One of the backside of this, what I've been hearing in some of the WhatsApp university chats is, toffee business has suffered a lot because of this UPI payment, right? Yes. So, I mean, of course, toffee business may feel that, oh my God, we are becoming redundant and things like that. But at the same time, we are also, this is also helping us in reducing the diabetes of people, right? So there's always a plus and a minus. It's always which side do we want to look at.
Perfectly, very well said. I think it's a very balanced aspect. So continuing with Vaidyanathan, with job loss is the same question, and I know you're going to, with learning and unlearning aspect coming from you, you're going to use the antidote here. But I would say the job losses, in fact, we should be worried about getting more jobs, right? I mean, what's your take? Is the hyper automation, it will automate few things, it will create new jobs in new sectors. So your take about the job losses, Vaidyanathan?
See, it will not be creating job losses. The thing is, again, you have to learn to do things in a new way. So you can't, like I said, keep doing it the old way. I mean, you have to forget what you've done in the old way. Maybe doing it, gone are the days when you had this phone, when you have to, to dial one number, it will take you 1.5 minutes to ring the dial, go in circles and again and again. Today, you can say, Siri, please dial my wife, and you dial. Simple. So you have to unlearn and learn. I mean, that's the, one of the things, like, for example, we did, we went through this CBS implementation, which has created a big hullabaloo in the market where, people take 18 months to do a CBS. It takes almost 3-4 months to sign an agreement. But, from start to finish, we pulled off the rug in 88 days flat. And still people are coming to terms with that. How did we do that? It is basically, in my first point is clarity of thought, what you want to achieve, what you want to do. And doing something thus far, no further, not accommodating anything and everything under the sun, or automating everything, or not automating something which needs to be automated. So, that's the point. It is not job losses. It will create actually more avenues. So basically, you have to forget what you've been doing. Now, if you say a programmer wants to do COBOL doesn't exist. Fortran doesn't exist. Pascal doesn't exist. So you have to learn something new. So technology, every 6 months it changes. So you have to reskill yourself. So whether it is technology or otherwise, reskilling is an inherent part. That is not going to change.
Very well said. So we'll take one question here. So again, comes from Manish from healthcare. It's a very practical aspect here. The best experienced aged doctors prefer writing prescriptions over typing on a device. Any suggestion for taking automation forward in the healthcare? So this has to be answered in two parts. So Deepak, I'll let you answer this. Two parts. How would you make a very experienced doctor use a technology to write the prescriptions? And in general, in healthcare, what kind of automation use cases would be there? Deepak, you want to take a look at it?
Yeah, I can do that. So, I think it is, I think we are all talking about change management and unlearning, right? I think it is really that. But I think there are enough and more, avenues for, in healthcare, right, to become digital. So, one of the, the flavor of the season, if you may, is Chat GPT, right? I think if you look at, using Chat GPT, for example, along with a typical app, you can actually have not only prescriptions, but, go to the next level in terms of what each prescription entails in terms of the ingredients of that, the tablet or the syrup or whatever else. So I think there's a whole element of augmenting the knowledge of the healthcare, not the knowledge, but essentially having the knowledge at the fingertips of the medical professional to drive a lot of the decision making and the patient and provider interaction, right? So again, within Evolute, we've done a lot of work in healthcare, right? So if you look at things like critical care management, right? How do you use, for example, event streaming? So data coming from, let's say, medical devices and even preventive healthcare, right? So data coming from your Fitbits and your Apple Watches. How do you process that real time, combine with machine learning, and drive? We spoke about customer delight, but in this case, patient delight, right? So how do you create that end to end workflow and customer and patient journey? But the short answer is, yeah, there is technology available. I think it's a combination of leveraging that and the change management and enabling the right tools, right, with the professionals. In terms of the second point, Rajendra, around the use cases, again, I mentioned a few, but healthcare is actually at the cutting edge of change. I think we spoke about banking. So banking actually has been leading so far, but I think just given a lot of constraints around, whether it's cost, whether it is just, availability of talent, I think the infusion of automation in healthcare, right, is going to be huge, right? So, it's critical care management I spoke about, and, leveraging that. The other aspects is around, even, the medical professionals using, by Mamta, you said OCR. So IDP, infusing a lot of those, and then using NLP, etc., to create almost like an assistant, if you may, for the medical professional. That's another key aspect. And the last aspect is around streamlining the whole, insurance provider, the medical provider and patient interaction, right? The triaging of that to make your claims processing, etc., a lot more quicker, faster, and cheaper, right, for everybody involved. So those are 3-4 use cases that we have done, right, in healthcare that I think come to mind in really taking it to the next step.
Thank you, Deepak. So far we have seen how difficult it is, how difficult it is to get the skills, how easy it is to rebuild the skills, what kind of mindset do you need, Then we also saw it is actually not a job loss. So moving on to the next myth, Deepak, the affordability. I mean, for an example, hyperautomation, can it be done across the wide spectrum of industries which can afford a very basic technology right till the high-end technology? The high-end technology guys can probably afford it. So in terms of expensive or in terms of the need to create a separate parallel IT system nowadays, that sometimes we think. So how affordable, how can we make it easy? It is the hyperautomation, Deepak.
So our firm belief is hyperautomation, or in general, automation should not be expensive, right? The reason I think it becomes expensive is on 3 or 4 counts, right? One is, I mentioned in my introduction earlier of what hyperautomation is. My initial thoughts was what organizations end up doing is, procuring 5-6 different technologies, right? They get something for your process orchestration, you have something for your data integration, you have something for the front end, RPA, etc., etc. Now, what you have to do is, you have to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 months putting all this together. There's a team that works on it from a technology lens and creates those point-to-point interactions and integrates all of that. The second is each of these requires a niche skill set, right? So whether it's on data side, for example, you need a Python programmer, right? And for the front end, you need somebody who understands JavaScript and mean stack and all of the those aspects, right? Then for your RPA, you need somebody who understands RPA and workflow, etc. Now, if you're able to have an integrated platform that looks at it consistently and have the same skill set across all of these, right? And with low code, no code, overlaying our automation, that's now possible, right? So that's something that can actually significantly reduce the cost of implementation. A, have an integrated platform that has the end-to-end capabilities. B, the platform should be able to do 70-80% of the heavy lifting in a low code no code manner, and only bring in the expert Python developer, etc., when you need to, right? And I think back to what we've spoken about, reskilling, that's where the enterprise can actually get involved, right? So if you look at operations people or people who are business analysts and domain specialists, and I think Mamta, you also spoke about citizen data scientists, etc., right? So the concept of business technologists and citizen developers is proliferating in the enterprise. So if you can then leverage existing roles in the organization, equip with them, take out the mundane aspect of what they're doing, you can actually get them more involved, and then scale your automation very quickly and do it in a way that is leveraging the rest of the enterprise. It's not expensive because you're not hiring new skill sets, and then also takes away the whole concept of shadow IT, because it is not, right? I mean, you have the organization that understands the business the best involved in the automation, and also with the right platform, you can create the guardrails and the governance to make sure that you're not sort of doing things on the side. So it's really about abstracting away the complexity of the technology while not compromising on the software engineering principles. So it's really about making it simple, not having a shortcut right to the implementation, right? So if you do all of this, I think you can actually implement automation at scale and do it at significantly lower costs.
Thank you, Deepak. I think that really clarifies about the whole mindset of the whole hyper automation being expensive. So, Mamta, you talked about a very interesting aspect while answering a question earlier about the ROI. And one of the aspects that you talked about, it's not about pure play money. It's about you measure it in terms of the time that you can get to focus on new innovative and strategic aspects. So in a way, would you like to share with us quickly about the whole budget planning, the sunset of a particular aspect, feeding it to the new budgets which are required, or the whole, what do I call, the budget circulation or the cost circulation or cost utilization circulation, the way it can happen in terms of hyper automation? A quick thought about that, continuing to what Deepak was saying.
For sure. So, I mean, like I said, right? I mean, of course, you will look at all the cost cuts, etc., that it will bring to table because you have now unlocked a lot of efficiencies, right? But that happens over the period of time. And, one of the biggest hindrances when people think about digital transformation or hyper automation, they always feel that, some magic would happen as a result of it. and then you will have your triple fold revenues, or maybe 1/10 of the cost and things like that. And because it's a long process, what happens is it also builds up a lot of frustration very fast when things don't unfold so quickly, right? And that's where I feel that, like I think Vedi said, you need to be very clear onto what is it that you're aspiring for, what is the objective that you're trying to solve with it, right? So any journey that you're thinking about, think of that objective, think of the ultimately POA vision, right, where you want to arrive towards the end. Think of it, how are you going to achieve it, and then sequence it out, thinking about the low hanging fruits first, so that you are able to showcase some of the benefits that you're trying to unlock as a result of this automation journey, and thus also feed in back the maybe the savings or the productivity increase into the investment that you're expecting your leaders to do. So have a full view of what is it that it will take you to achieve the entire hyper automation landscape per se. But when you're asking for budgetary requirements, only ask for a small POC that you want to show, which will help you achieve those results, achieve the benefits out of that POC, feed that back into it, so that it becomes like a constant loop, and the leadership also sees you really driving some benefits. So it's all about how do you prioritize, how do you really keep on measuring what gets, and I always say that what gets measured is what gets delivered, right? So when you're on your hyper automation path, you have to ensure that whatever you promise to yourself or to your organization, you have to keep measuring how soon you're achieving it, how close you are to achievement. And if there is some failure, which is okay, then it is a failure fast enough to go for a course correction. That's how I usually ask for the budget to my leadership in my organization, and usually I've been able to so far get whatever I've been asking. So yeah, I feel it works.
Thank you, Mamta. I think so far we have collected a good amount of myths, and we have busted good amount of myths. So very quickly getting into now the myths are being busted. A very quick discussion about how do we implement this. And to begin with, Srikanth, one question to you is: are there any prerequisites? Just a quick fire list of any prerequisite or any readiness assessment that needs to happen. What are your thoughts about it?
I would say the key considerations you need to take when you're building your hyper automation portfolio. You can call it as prerequisites or constraints or considerations, but I would say 3 or 4 I can talk about. One is time to market constraint, or always be clear on your time to market strategy. By introducing the automations, hyper automations, what exactly your tags and SLAs will affect the entire workflow. Sometimes it may give you instant edge, sometimes it takes time, where you see the results only after a certain period of time. So time to market constraint is something that very important to keep your entire business portfolio or your management, to keep them aware what could happen by introducing this hyper automation. That is one. 2 is the total cost of ownership. Again, your return on investments and cost of ownership, which again goes back to your overall budget. What could be the capex, opex for these hyper automations? Is something that you need to be aware what you're trying to do. Third is the skill set. So whether do you also need to do your reality check, whether does the organization or does your both the business side and also IT side have a minimum skill requirement to absorb the hyper automation, or any special trainings are required. So these things you need to keep in mind. And finally, vendor check, vendor maturity and vendor check plays a very big role, because sometimes you end up lot of your expertise on vendors and partners, and which plays a very, very important role. So that where you spend time on your strategic work and you rely on technology with vendors and partners. So a kind of a skill check, or could be their experience check, expertise check plays a very important role. Ensure that the vendor to whom you're trying to onboard have a decent experience, expertise, or working this hyper automation. So this could be the 3 or 4 constraints factor in your strategy.
Thank you, Shrikant. I think you summarized it very well. So now moving on from the checklist or a prerequisite of hyper automation to begin with, Vedanthan, we would like to understand: is there any critical path involved in hyper automation, or is there a sample workflow, or is there a model that you think you would recommend to the users? Very high level model of or a critical path, Vedanthan.
One of the things is, which I always say, being a consultant, a vendor, a user, a customer, a 360-degree journey, the critical path for anything, be it hyper automation, automation, or even a journey, is 80% planning and 20% execution. So if you plan your things correctly, absolutely, the rest 20% is shooting the ducks. So, and that has been done like an army-like precision. And people have asked me, why is it and how is it that this particular task of doing a CBS in 88 days was achieved? It was very simple. I mean, clarity of thought and objective, what you want to do. And surprisingly, by doing this, we moved from a monolithic architecture to a microservices-based architecture. We saved half the money and we saved almost more than half the time. Typically, they say, a CBS is like doing an open heart surgery while running a race. And people are so scared that they don't even take a decision on it. And, they keep mulling over it and have these, in Hindi, I would call them Ardh Gyaneshwars, who have half the knowledge and have full recommendations. And it's very, so you need to have horses for courses, need to have the right people in the team and who can contribute and who are part of the same journey. And, you have to be very clear what you want. And once you have clarity and then you get it down, and don't keep everything on the mind, write it down, put it on the whiteboard if you want it, right in front of you to see what happens. And then, just go for it. If you have, and one of the things which I personally learned in this journey was, if the leader has 1% doubt, the rest 99 will add that 99% doubt. So don't do that. So there is the same, the poem which says, the charge is the life brigade, not to question why, but to do and die. That's it. Simple, straightforward, do it and don't look back. I mean, there will be problems, you have to take it and then move on. But I think, you have to, and don't, have herd mentality. Don't automate for the heck of it. Just because your neighbor has a Samsung refrigerator, don't buy a Samsung refrigerator. You may not need a 365 liter. You may be a single person, you may need a small refrigerator. Similarly, automation, just because somebody else is doing, don't do it. Do it because if you need it. See, on a simple example, there are some pitfalls of hyper automation also. A car is a classic example today. I like the old way the dashboard was made and the switches were there in the cars. Today, the modern cars are all completely screens. But the pitfall to that is you take your eyes off the dashboard and look at the screen. You're in for trouble. It's go to dash. But if you have switches which you can work like a blind man, and you know the size of the switch, location of the switch, you don't have to take your eyes off the dashboard, you can switch. So sometimes living with what it is, a simplistic way of looking at things is much better than doing hyper automation for the heck of it. But at the same time, you can't avoid hyper automation. You have to get the best balance between the two.
Thank you. I think Vedi, it was absolutely fantastic to understand those aspects. So very quickly, we now have about 11 minutes, and so Deepak, you have done so many hyper automation implementations. Specifically, if you can just talk about the results. We in sales, we always sell the result. We don't sell how exactly blah 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 and all that stuff. But you want to talk about the success stories and what is the kind of impact it has done, the hyper automation in terms of results?
Sure, Rajendra. So I think so the EIQ platform has been used to implement use cases across industries and domains, right? So we've got implementations from banking, insurance, and healthcare to manufacturing and retail. From a domain perspective, we've cut across customer experience, like I said earlier, into the use cases to the back office, automation, etc. And I think typically when we look at defining the key success factors upfront, they are typically sort of at two levels, right? At the one level is what you would call as more operational KPI. So things like we spoke about productivity improvement. So for example, reduction of that by 60% as an example, or cost reduction. If you look at a typical process, one of the key metrics that get measured is average handling time, right? So if you have a, let's say somebody calling a call center, what's the average handling time? And then the key metrics for that could be to reduction of that, from, let's say, because every second is important, from, let's say, 2 minutes to, whatever, 1 minute, right? That could be a key metric that you want to, and we've delivered that kind of impact from a end-to-end perspective. And then if you look at customer service, for example, we typically measure that from a NPS score. So we drive, clear path, flight path to reducing and rather improving the NPS score. The second level, right, that which we look at is really around the key business metrics. So we've, for example, in insurance, one of the engagements we worked on was really focused around working with underwriters for faster cash realization, right? And we were able to drive 50 to 60% reduction in the realization lag, if you may, right? Similarly, one of the use cases in banking was around loan or using ML to actually drive faster loan disbursements. So there it was really around improvement in wallet size by 60%, right, as an example. Similarly, healthcare, it is really around metrics related to the patient, etc. So for example, reduction in payment timelines, reduction in denials rate by 60% or 40%, whatever, right? So it's really around those business metrics that we typically focus on. So those are the kind of use cases and Rajendra, the metrics that we look at and the kind of impact we look at creating through hyperautomation.
Thank you, Deepak. So we'll move on to the last section of our discussion. We'll obviously wait for the questions. We have about approximately 8 minutes, but as a key takeaway, so starting with Shrikant, as a key takeaway, what would you like to talk about as a key takeaway or a message to the audience, those who want to try the hyperautomation?
One, additionally, to talk about the success of this hyperautomation, one advice I can say is, try to introduce as much tooling as possible to, measure the entire journey of your hyperautomations. So your hyperautomation portfolio, your technology portfolio has to be in a way that it can be tracked at every level. It could be in a task automation, or could be process automation, it could be any business operations. While you introduce your digital operations, digital sec operations. There's so many jargons now these days, which changes the way you code, you develop, you design, you test, and you deploy. So in this entire journey, where introduce as much hyperautomation as you can, but start measuring that in form of a tool. So that also adds an additional layer of kind of a mature process to make sure that it is tracked end of the day, and which is very important for IT heads. Always to be questioned by finance committees or the management. The kind of investments what we are trying to make. At the end of the day, you need to give perfect ROI or your kind of spent details. So introducing as much tooling as possible at like event processing, or could be anything, that will really make life easy, to all the people across who are trying to do the hyperautomation. Yeah.
Thanks, Shrikant. Well said. I think tool aspect is very important. Vaidyanathan, we definitely need one line philosophical quote from you for hyperautomation. What would that be?
Okay, I was writing it actually. If I were to say it,
okay.
Choose carefully, plan properly, execute ruthlessly. Basically, courses.
Can you repeat it for everybody's sake, or maybe just put it on the poster as well?
Yeah, I would say choose carefully, plan properly, and execute it ruthlessly. Basically, you have horses for courses, no friends and foes. The mission is more important than the people involved in it.
Absolutely. I think this is brilliant thought. So we'll definitely make it a point to practice this. So moving on to Mamta. Mamta, we need one encouragement thought from you, encouragement quote from you for all the users.
not as fancy as what Vedi gave. Very, I think that was very, very impressive. But I would say that, kill your procrastination. That's like, the most, one of the biggest roadblock. I think only two roadblocks that I see in the, in the path of hyper automation is, one, you need to get started, right? Once you have decided that this is the objective, and just like how Vedi said, right? Choose carefully. You know what are you going to do. Do a good planning, but once that planning is done, just start on the journey. Don't keep on procrastinating. And second thing is,
Sorry, I'm tempted to say something. Please get out of this indecisiveness phase.
Exactly.
That's all.
Exactly. Right. And also, another thing which becomes a big roadblock is when you have not onboarded your stakeholders on the vision in the beginning itself, right? It is important for you, whosoever you're going to, make things happen, whichever business unit that you're supporting, whosoever is the stakeholders, it is extremely important to let them understand the vision that you're bringing to the table, to let them see the benefits that are going to come out of it. And if you're able to convince them in the beginning itself, you will see how smooth this journey would be. I mean, it will just become like a, a win-win situation for all of you. And being technology, partners, being the people who actually do the automation, I feel one of the, very the trick that I use for, making these things successful is also, don't keep all the credit to yourself. When your businesses are joining hands with you to really make things happen, you have to make them the forefront. They know that you're bringing in value, but it is them who are going to see the benefits and make them your custodians for, going and talking about the benefits that are coming out.
Thank you so much for the benefits administration. And I think that really encourages in a lot of way. Last but not the least, Deepak, look, I mean, though we are not selling the toasters here as a guarantee that we can give, but can the audience take that, the hyperautomation can work guaranteedly, provided we do it correctly, right? As Vaiti said, as Shrikant said, as Mamta said. So any thoughts on the sure shot guarantee of hyperautomation? Quick one.
Look, it works, right? I think, like we all discussed today, I think that the trick is to sort of getting it right, having, the method to the madness, and using the right tooling and the change management, right? At the end of the day, it is not, it is not a project, right? So as long as we, don't treat it like a project, it will work. If we manage the change, if we have that, a top down and bottom up, right, have the senior management involved, the business ops technology involved, right? If they all come together to drive this, I think, it works, and it can really enhance the business agility and, adaptability to the, the ongoing business needs and changes that we see in the organization. Right.
Thank you so much, Deepak. I think with that, we come to an end. But a quick fire summary, I think we have gone through the difference between automation and hyperautomation, the myths, be it the skills or the job losses or the expensive investments or the overall difficulties and many other aspects, and how do we really go about it with a prerequisite, with a hand-picked metrics, with as Vaiti said, some of the aspects, and as Mamta also talked about it. In reality, I mean, one quote really that comes to my mind as a closure of this session, the software is the language of automation. We have been using the software for like so many decades, but in reality, that's the beginning of the whole automation. We probably didn't realize this, and this quote came from Jensen Huang. With that note, I want to thank personally everyone, and I'll hand it over to Nitin to do the further thank you note. But for me, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much to the participants, and thank you very much to everyone here. It was my pleasure to host this. Nitin, would you like to do the closing formalities?
Sure, Rajendra. Thank you. Just to let you guys know, I have been doing lots of events from last many years, but this one will come to the top of my list. I'll tell you frankly. The way you guys made it, it was lovely. And the way the hyperautomation is seen, to do in a simple way, and the quotes by Vedi, Mamta, Deepak, Shrikant, it sets up whatever we had to do. So I think thanks a lot, all of you guys, to come together and make this a good success. Just to wrap up, we would like to thank all our community partners, all the speakers and attendees who came together for enriching knowledge through this forum. We had great set of panel speakers, as we all know, who came together to share thoughts. Just for your information, today's event was broadcasted in the YouTube page of our company. So all of you can go and see the recording anytime. Please log on to our website and like the social media channels. We'll be sharing lots of knowledge sharing topics, details, announcement of next events, and much more, which will help you register and attend the quality events. Also, we would like to thank InfoVision, which is our knowledge and innovation partner, and Digit7, which is our technology partner. To understand more in depth, connect with them. All of you can go through their website, which is infovision.com, and closely liaison with them. There are lots more in store for this year with focus on banking, finance, insurance, telecom, retail, healthcare, supply chain, manufacturing, energy, utility, and so on. So request all of you to keep connected with us and enjoy the learning. Thanks, and do take good care of yourself. Have a lovely day and great day ahead, all of you guys. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.